Keenan Briggs, sports consultant and mentor. Today's conversation is the phrase of stop making excuses. This is more or less to those athletes that basically were like me, right? Um, I would I would find ways to blame everything around me for my lack of success. And then as I got older, I started to realize I was creating these specific environments. I was creating these experiences because I had an attachment to them. So here's what I mean, right? I have athletes every single year, and some of them say, oh, I performed poorly because, and they blame something else. They say, oh, well, the pit was bad, or it was windy, or it was raining, or, like everything outside of I just performed poorly, right? For example, I have an athlete who's in New Mexico, and the wind was blowing at 23 miles per hour with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. They had to cancel the meet, right? Even in that environment, if they would have kept the meet, you're still competing. You're still saying, I'm going to perform at the best of my ability in this specific environment. There was a time at the Fresno Counterbattle Championships, and I was competing at Fresno State, and there was a headwind of 5 miles per hour. And the best jump, I think, was like 45 feet because we couldn't even jump. Mind you, these are all 50-foot jumpers. We couldn't even jump. And the next day, the wind died down, and we were jumping all 50 feet, right? So at the end of the day, there was still a first place winner who jumped 45 feet in the prelims. Like, it doesn't matter the surroundings, doesn't matter what's going on, and even if you decide to compete, we as coaches don't want to hear the excuses. If you're jumping with no spikes because you forgot them and you're jumping in literally in like bare feet, if you step on that runway, you cannot use I was barefooted as an excuse. Why? Because you competed. It's showing us that the second you compete, there's no more excuses about it. If your hamstring is sore, your quads are tight, all that stuff, the second you step on the runway, none of that matters. Okay. A personal story. This is like not track related, but it'll tie in. Um, Basically, I play basketball, right? I play in an adult league, and I missed like 4 or 5 layups. It was bad. I missed a bunch of layups, right? And I told them, hey, this game, I'm going to run up down the court. I'm going to like be really aggressive with my running because I want to work on my cardio. And I was open. So I'm down the court and they're throwing these passes. But when they threw them to me, it was in the worst situation. Like one pass I caught, like it was at my knees behind the basket. And I did some like 360 layup and I missed it. Right. And I'm thinking like, if you're going to pass me the ball in a certain place. And they're like, man, you got to make your layups. I'm thinking like, you're throwing the ball in a bad place. Like I can't move my body the way that you're expecting me to make this. And before I said this, because I'm thinking this, right? Before I said it, I asked myself, am I or am I not making layups? And the reality is, no, I'm missing layups. I can't blame them for a bad pass because I still chose to shoot the ball and I missed it. They didn't miss the shot, I did. So later on, I realized I'm just going to continue playing. I'm not going to tell them that the passes are bad. I'm not going to blame them for me missing layups because at the end of the day, I don't have to shoot it. I'm the one shooting it. So another pass was bad again, and I'm behind the basket. And I was like, I'm not going to force this up. And I ended up keeping the ball behind the rim, and I dished it off to another teammate who laid it up, who had a better position for a layup. And I realized to myself in this situation that there's no excuse, there's only solutions. There's always solutions. If I'm being dealt a certain thing, I create the solutions. So I say this to you guys. Stop making excuses. If you didn't make it to league, whose fault is that? It's your fault, right? If you win league, whose fault is that? It's your fault. It's always coming back to you. And if you're always the one in control, always the reason for whatever it is, the great thing about it is that you're the reason for the change as well. Don't look at it as I'm not performing well, it's their fault and blame others. But also don't look at it as I'm doing well. It's my fault. I did it. It's easy to say that you did it when it's something good. When it's something bad, we don't blame. We blame everyone else. You got a bad, score on your test. Well, if the teacher didn't explain, and no, you took the test. You signed up for this class. And if you say you didn't sign up for the class, well, you're in high school, right? You chose to go to school. At the end of the day, it's always your situation. And the great thing about it is you can be the one to change it. Okay. So no more excuses. No more feeling bad for yourself. No more trying to blame other people and saying, oh, well, I was a little under the weather. And, no, you weren't. You decided to compete, and you decided to compete under the weather. So you're going to perform at a very high level because that's your decision. Okay. So here's um, another layer to it. The way you do one thing is how you do everything. This is what I truly believe. Right. And if I if my room is cluttered, right? My bedroom is just a mess and I'm not as organized. I probably do those same things in other areas of my life. That means when I'm communicating with my friends about events that we're doing, right? I may not be as organized in what I'm doing with them. So it's just consistent across the board. So odds are, if you grew up a certain way and you're okay, I have this thought in my head. Let me erase that thought, come back to a new one. Come back to a new one. Follow me on this one. Okay. Um, let's say that I'll use my story. This is perfect. I'll use my personal story. So growing up, we lived paycheck to paycheck, right? I would get a gift or a toy this Friday. Next Friday, the lights would be off. And then the next Friday, I get a new toy, right? Lights back on. And like I was just used to that way of living. When I became an adult, that was the way I was living. I would receive money no matter what amount. Then I would end up without money because I would spend it, right? And I just didn't have this good relationship with money. And I decided to start studying money, understanding what it does, and et cetera, et cetera. Then I realized the reason why I wasn't in a good relationship with money was because I had a belief system and an upbringing that molded my decision making. And it was all subconscious. So when you apply that to performance and track and field and what you're doing in your sport, is whatever you grew up doing, you're going to be doing those exact same things, right? If you're a person that relies on others to tell you what to do, that's okay. However, you need to go to a school or be in a program that they tell you what to do. I call that a high maintenance athlete, right? You can even be extreme and get into the army, right, or the Navy and run track for those programs because they're very specific, detailed on what's happening on and off the track, right? So if you find yourself consistently losing or not performing at big, invitationals or meets, it's not that it's them, it's that you have a certain way of living. Myself, I was having the poor breakfast. I had poor eating habits, right? And that led to me performing at a very poor level at these meets. Well, I then changed my eating habits to make the change happen. So I could have easily blamed my mom for feeding me these foods, but she was feeding me the foods that she thought was the best for me at that time. Now we don't eat those foods, right? So this all circles right back into the reason why you're getting what you're getting is because of you. If you don't like what you're getting, then you need to change you and the way that you operate and the way that you think to allow for different results for you. If everything is going great, then you probably didn't need to hear this video because everything you're doing is exactly where it's supposed to be. But what if you want to scale your successes? What if you want more success? Then again, evaluate what you're doing and how do you make that bigger and better? All right. So stop making the excuses. If you're going to compete, compete. Don't blame anyone else but yourself. And you're going to find so much more success, joy, comfort within this process. But you're also going to deal with a new battle, which is battling with yourself and changing some of your belief systems to make sure that they're in favor of where you're going. All right. Until next time.